Hey, Mama, wouldn't you like to pause from your busy day and listen in to experts and homeschool parents like you about the beautiful world of homeschooling? This new podcast is designed for you. Each episode connects you to the best conversations that will give you courage and fill your cup so you can keep pouring into your family every single day. Introducing the Hey Mama Homeschool Show, brought to you by the Old Schoolhouse, your trusted homeschool partner for over 20 years.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show. I'm your host, Christine, and if you haven't met me yet, I am a homeschooling mom of two boys who are 10 and 6 right now. I also have the privilege of working for the Old Schoolhouse under the Canadian Schoolhouse as well as schoolhouseteachers.com. So that's just a little bit about me. And so our theme for this episode is high school graduates. What do they look like? So I don't know where you are in your homeschool journey, but for me right now, I am certainly not thinking about high school and what to do after high school just yet. But it is important that we do start to think about these things. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. To start off with, why don't we talk about those of us who may be on the fence on whether or not you want to continue homeschooling through high school. So maybe you're like me and you've got little ones right now and you're a little worried as to what happens when it comes to those high school years and getting high school credits and what happens after high school. Are they going to get into college? Are they going to get into university? All those are valid questions. And it's a big concern for many homeschoolers who set out on their journey, especially when they start out with little children and they wonder, well, what happens for these later years? And so we see a lot of those questions in a lot of the homeschooling groups. What do we do? I just wanted to direct you to a really great resource if you are homeschooling. It's called the National Home Education Research Institute. So for short, it's NARI.org. That's the website that you can go to. And I promise this will be in the show notes so you can grab the link. And specifically, we will be including this page from that site called Research Facts on Homeschooling. And I just wanted to point out a few to you. So the first one says the home educated, which are our children, typically score 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. 78% of peer-reviewed studies on academic achievement show homeschool students perform statistically significantly better than those in institutional schools. Another point is homeschool students score above average on achievement tests regardless of their parents' level of formal education or their family's household income. And I know this is a big concern too for many parents in terms of, the big question, like, am I qualified to teach my children, especially when it comes to those high school subjects, which count towards their post-secondary education. So this was really encouraging to know. The next point says whether homeschool parents were ever certified teachers is not related to their children's academic achievement. Another point says degree of state control and regulation of homeschooling is not related to academic achievement. The next point says home educated students typically score above average on the SAT and ACT tests that colleges consider for admissions. And the last point here that I'll mention is homeschool students are increasingly being actively recruited by colleges. And this number is growing more and more. And so you can actually go to this website from the link in the show notes and really take a look at these stats out there. And just so you know, this website updates frequently, so you are getting the most up-to-date facts about homeschooling. So this is extremely helpful. And I pulled some other notes on just general successes for homeschooling students in the real world. And one of the points is that 69% of peer-reviewed studies on success into adulthood, which includes college, shows adults who were home educated succeed and perform statistically significantly better than those who attended institutional schools. So that was encouraging to know when I was researching. And one of the other points says they go to and succeed at college at an equal or higher rate than the general population. And another good point to point out is that by adulthood, they internalize the values and beliefs of their parents at a high rate. And I can tell you from someone who has been in the public school system as a teacher's assistant, I can tell you that they are not receiving the same values and beliefs that you are teaching your kids at home. And so the fact that you are keeping your children home so that they are surrounded by loving parents who are teaching them the good values and beliefs that you grew up with is giving them the better chance of internalizing that and making it a solid choice for them as they transition into adulthood. And so for me, this was an important thing to know. And hopefully it's encouraging to you. And so most of these points have been researched by Dr. Brian Ray. And if you are a follower of the old Schoolhouse magazine, you will most likely recognize that name. He has written a couple of articles, in fact, many articles for the TOS magazine. And again, I'm going to share with you one of the articles that he wrote so that you can just be encouraged by that as well. And so look for that in the show notes. So that was a little bit of encouragement for those those of you who were on the fence as to whether you should continue. And I mean, I am convinced. I don't know how because it is overwhelming to think about my little ones going to high school, because there's a sense of pressure that comes with it, because kindergarten, all the coloring, the alphabet, the counting, and all those little things, they're important, but they don't seem to count as much as to what they would be learning in those high school years. And so I totally get the apprehension that some of us have for continuing. But now that I've seen the benefits of keeping my children home and what they are learning and how far they can go in terms of what they want to learn and how they want to learn in the spaces of our house, like it's just so encouraging to say, I can't possibly think of them going into an institution and having to change their way of learning and not being able to receive the same amount of care that they're already receiving at home. So I'm going to do it. I'm convinced. I'm going to keep going. That brings me to my next question of what happens when they actually finish high school. So one of the big questions, as I mentioned, is, will my child be able to get into college and university? And I mean, one of the links that I'm going to leave you with is a theme page that was created by the Canadian Schoolhouse, and it has a few articles in there to give you some great resources on post-secondary options for homeschool graduates. And that page is called Homeschool Graduate Requirements and Options in Canada. And so you'll find a variety of articles in there, and I'll just highlight some of what you can find in there. So these are some of the things that you can do after graduation. Obviously, there is the college or university route. There is trade schools that you can apply for, and there are apprenticeships. And so when you're preparing your children for life after homeschool, there's so many options to think through. So don't think that, college and university is the only answer. You might be helping them consider the few that I mentioned, like trade schools, college, apprenticeships, but there's also, entrepreneurial ventures. They can start their own business. Maybe they, over their teen years, they developed a talent of something that they were good at, or they have some really good business skills that they can apply to a business that of their choosing. And the sky's the limit when it comes to that. And many homeschool families have launched, especially through a lot of moms have done this as well. And so maybe your child will be following in your footsteps and maybe joining the family business that way. And overall, in general, you want to just prepare them for life as an adult. And I just want to put in this reminder here that as homeschoolers, we are set apart from all the others. So our homeschool graduates don't need to look like public school graduates, nor do they need to follow the same steps after graduating. So even if you don't have older children right now, something to consider is, what should you add to your teaching right now to prepare your children for life after homeschool? And so this made me stop and think, because while I may not be considering high school years right now, I'm not prepping for college or university at all. But what am I doing right now to help them prepare for that when it comes? And maybe not just our kids being prepared, but for myself prepared. So, if your child has an interest right now, I mean, for one of my sons, he's completely obsessed with marine life to the point where he can talk for hours on almost anything, I feel, any type of creature that could be found in the water. And I mean, how cool would it be to start directing him in that path to be a marine biologist if that's something that he is so passionate about? And so, you get him into the certain programs out there for juniors, and then for teenagers. And then, he could apply for an apprenticeship in a program that is, learning under a marine biologist. And then before you know it, that's what he's doing. And so how great would it be if we directed them right from the get-go, and so it becomes a smoother transition. And it's always good to start thinking about all of these things. I mean, everything that we teach our kids, whether it's academics or life skills, I mean, we're preparing them for everything that is to come after we're done teaching, right? Whether it's college life or marriage life or employment, there are ways that we can help our children prepare. So we can ask ourselves 3 questions to help us gain some insight. So, what will they need to be ready to do when they're finished? What are they going to be facing? And what's most important for life? So those are some things that are really general questions that can get so specific and really help us narrow down and make sure that we're teaching them what they need to know. And so some of these points were taken from the article called Many Paths for High School Graduates, written by Deborah Wooler from the old Schoolhouse magazine. And in her article, which will be in the show notes, there is a handy checklist that we can use, I think, daily, not just for preparing for high school, but just for life in general. So in answer to those questions, what do they need to be ready to do? So for example, they need to have good study skills. They need to know how to research information. Can they communicate clearly? All of these things are really good skills to know before going into college or university. And what are some of the things that they're going to face now that they have left the home and they're in a institutional setting? Do they have a strong biblical worldview? Because that's going to matter when they step outside. Are they strong in their faith? Do they know how to pray? These are really good questions. And sometimes we don't think about these things, but imagine that your children are strong in these things, in their faith, and knowing how to lean on God in stressful situations. They'll be so much better prepared when they step out of their comfort zone and into this new environment that's going to challenge them, guaranteed. And, most importantly, we want to make sure, do they love God and do they love others? Because, overall, we want our children to be representative of Christ, right? So I really hope you check this article out called Many Paths for High School Graduates in the show notes, because that checklist is going to help. It's going to help me. It's going to help you a whole lot as we're preparing our children. And there are some more articles for you to read. Again, I mentioned as part of the stats earlier that universities and colleges are actively seeking out homeschool students. You can read an article about a student here in Canada who had gone to Trinity Western University. You can be encouraged by that story. And the other article is post-secondary education without high school credits. And we actually interviewed that mom. Her name is Janet Lasole. And we interviewed her at the Canadian Schoolhouse. And so she shares a little bit of the journey of her two daughters. And they both had different paths when it came to post-secondary education. And one of them didn't have to worry about high school credits because it's not something that she wanted to pursue. And she pursued a different path, and she's doing what she loves. And so definitely check that out. And I'll put the YouTube link for that interview. I'm going to share a little clip from that interview that we did with Janet Lasole with the Canadian Schoolhouse. So just be encouraged by this little clip.
So this was this came out of an email exchange we had about whether you wanted me to talk about the gap year. And you were like, well, what does that exactly mean? And I said, it's interesting that you asked that, because it's something that's really well known in Europe. I think everyone's maybe heard the expression, but are not exactly sure what it means.
Yeah.
But it's very common in Europe. And I mean, as you can imagine, if you're a European student and you want to take a gap year, which is basically that year between high school and university, and you want to backpack and learn another culture. Well, if you live in Europe, it's just, just go right next door to the next country. But a gap year, nevertheless, is something that we encouraged, particularly because we have two very different children. We have one that knew what she wanted to do from the time she was 12, and there was absolutely there's no veering off that course. And some kids are like that, but I actually think it's rare. I think it's rare when someone knows at that young age. So we just supported that. But then the other child was, I kind of know what I want to do. I'm not exactly sure if this is the program. And a lot of kids are, I have no idea what I want to do. And I think that some families in North America, I don't know why, but I remember this when I was young too, is that you just needed to go from high school to university. There should be no break in there. I think parents used to express the concern that if kids don't go right after high school, they'll never go to university. I don't know where that came from. Did you hear that too when you were growing up?
I don't think that's true, because I think we should be learning all throughout our lives, right? So whether you take a year after high school or maybe even 10 years, so many adults going back to school. So it's that, I don't think there's much soundness in that comment.
And I think that, like, for us, I felt like going to university or college right after high school just for the sake of going, I think it runs the risk of having the child feel the pressure of, well, like, it's expensive. And do I enter into this program and spend the thousands of dollars and then decide this isn't right for me? And can I really transfer or quit now? There's some pressure there to continue with something that they're not really interested in. And then what happens at the end of 4 years? Do they go to a brand new school and spend all that money again? Do they get it? Do they just say, oh, forget it, and just get into a career that they're sort of lukewarm about? We did not want that.
Yeah.
So when, like I was explaining, when my daughter got word that she was accepted to the university and she said, well, I'm going to travel again, we said, go, because the most important thing is that you need to be sure. And it was the right decision, because while she was traveling, she said, I don't really think that it's the best program for me. So good, because she would have gone and she would have discovered that while she was in the program, and who knows what would have happened. So so a gap year is that gap between high school and university, and it usually encompasses travel. I mean, for the most part, it doesn't always, but usually it encompasses travel. I mean, you can take a gap year and just work if you want to.
So you can listen to the whole episode again. Just click on the link in the show notes and enjoy. And hopefully it's inspiring you to just think outside the box, because sometimes I think we fall into that trap of, trying to mimic how the public education system works. And again, as homeschoolers, we are set apart and we do not need to look like how the world looks. So just be encouraged by all of this that we're sharing here today, and definitely check out all the resources that are included in the show notes. And I just wanted to point out, if you are part of the old Schoolhouse family, over at schoolhouseteachers.com, we will be having a senior recognition. So if you do have a high schooler that's about to graduate, we want to celebrate with you. So if you are a member, you'll find all the information in your member dashboard. If you're not a member, you should be. So you can go to schoolhouseteachers.com and click on the view plans right at the top of the page and check out the ways that you can join and become a member. And we'd love to have you join the family. We've got such a wonderful community of homeschooling parents, and I've had the privilege of meeting quite a bit of them, and I'd love for you to join us there. Just a plug. Obviously, there's a bunch of homeschool resources, one-stop shop, if you want to think about it that way, one price for the entire family, as well as resources for you as a parent. And as I mentioned, the homeschooling community to help support you through your journey. And also part of schoolhouseteachers.com is exclusive access to Total College Success. And that is all preparation skills, resources to help prepare you for college. And that includes preparation for all of the entrance exams and ACT tests and all of that important questions that you may have for going through the college process. And we have the NAC competition opportunity as well. Schoolhouseteachers.com members get a 50% discount, which is extremely, extremely good. And NAC stands for the National Academic Homeschool Competition. This is just another great way to prepare your children in a fun way. And yes, there are prizes, and they're really good ones too. So again, you can, if you are a member, you can take advantage of that exclusive bonus to participate in that. And all of that information, if you are a schoolhouseteachers.com member, is in your member dashboard. So, or you can check on preparing for college right at the blue bar menu and click for more information. So I hope that you are more encouraged about those high school years. And just know that there are more and more people every day joining this homeschool journey. And so there are opportunities popping up more and more every day for our homeschoolers. And I mean, there are already colleges who are opening doors in specific ways for homeschooling students, because they recognize that homeschooling students are really good students and they want homeschoolers in their institutions. So be encouraged by that fact that, as maybe you're just getting started on the homeschooling high school journey. By the time, within the next few years, the possibilities are just going to grow. And so just be encouraged to keep on pushing and keep on teaching, keep on loving your kids. Definitely check out all of the resources that we have for you. I mentioned a bunch of them, but there are still even more that we've gathered there for you in the show notes. And you can visit the show notes at homeschoolshow.com. And I just want to let you know that new episodes of the Hey Mama Homeschool Show pop up every Monday. And just to let you know what's coming up, we've got cursive and copywork. How should we celebrate the homeschool mom, which is just in time for Mother's Day? Help when special needs are hard. So mark those down, and wherever you're listening to, I hope you subscribe, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening.